We have driven so many species to the brink of extinction, but we're great at building fences that actually have stopped them falling over that edge.
I don't think we can put what we've got in the zoo. I mean, that's what I almost feel like Pomona Island is. At the moment it's a zoo, it's an ark, we're trying to keep stuff alive. The world's got to actually slow down. We have to work out that we've got climate change happening, we've got a biodiversity crisis, and actually we need to put our finger out and make this happen. Pomona Island's a big hunk of rock sitting in the middle of Lake Manapuri that sort of cuts the lake in half. So the work started in 2005, the trust was formed in 2005. And on the island we had deer, possums, stoats, rats and mice. So it was a big job. I think we used 8 tonnes of brodifacoum in the end. We thought this is great, you know, we've got a moat around this island. So we organised it, right, what are we going to do? We've got this island, there's not much on it. Let's translocate some birds back to the island. So we talked to Doc about Kiwis, and Kiwis are iconic. You really want to get Kiwis back on an island. So they had the Haast tokoeka from Haast, that I think there's only 400 odd left, so they were dead keen to find a pest-free island to deal with that.
We are in Orakanu Eco Sanctuary, which is a ringed fence sanctuary, and essentially it's like a little kiwi farm. It's part of Operation Nest Egg, so they take wild eggs from the Haast range, incubate them in places like the Franz Josef Wildlife Centre or Willowbank, hatch them. We get them honestly about yay big when they're about 4 weeks old. I think probably weigh about 300 grams. And then our job is to get them off their supplementary food and then get them up to a decent weight, say 1,200 grams or maybe 1,500 grams. And then Doc, the overlords, sort of put them somewhere else, either on Crash Islands or other sanctuaries, with the ultimate goal of returning those ones back to the Haast to supplement to increase the numbers. And that is the quickest way of building up a population, because there's only about 400 to 500 Haasties left in the world.
So 2009 we got Haast Kiwi, we got 20 Haast Kiwi put on the island. They come for about a year, grow to about 1.5 kilos, and then they catch them and take them back to Haast.
The Kiwi creation is very intense. Over the course of a season, that's probably hundreds of hours of staff time goes into that. But by far that's the best thing we do here, is go catch little Kiwi chicks. It's fun. The special thing about the Haast tokoeka is they're ginger. They're the gingers of the Kiwi world, and some of them really are strikingly orange, but not exactly Ed Sheeran, but they have a really distinct kind of plumage, really orange.
You've got to be a born optimist to be working in this job, you really do. All the beech trees all decide to flower the same year, and they all produce prodigious amounts of seed, and it all falls on the ground, and it's just like pavlova to rats and mice. They love it. And they just breed frantically. We spend a lot of time in workshops building hardware, sort of building these rodent motels. That went off with a bit of a bang. We rely on grant applications and donations, and it's a totally voluntary trust, so none of us get paid for doing anything, which is, but it's enjoyable. I mean, this is why we keep coming. We can do the trap check on the 100 and 200 traps on the island in a day with 6 people. But you come back and you feel buggered basically. And we've just getting rats back down to a number now that's controllable. But of course, they're talking about another beach mast come this autumn.
The Māori name for rangatira, which is hoko rere-oro, means loosely the vibration of flight. And I think when you experience the island at night, you kind of really understand where that comes from. This is has really been the last refuge for a number of some of New Zealand's most critically endangered species, and holds a really important place in New Zealand conservation history. We've got some of New Zealand's most endangered birds breeding here that call this place home. 8 species of seabird breed here, some of which are quite endangered, including the Chatham petrel. We've got shore plover breeding here, and this is their main sanctuary, and then of course you've got black robin. So the black robin population got down to only five individuals, and from there, through a mammoth amount of effort and translocations, the population is now sitting at around about 270 adults across 2 islands, of which this is one. Sometimes you can see their little, if they've been fed quite a big feed in the last night, you can see their little balloon tummies. Great. The Chatham petrel, the last island that they were breeding on was this island. They were critically endangered, but through translocations and burrow management, we kind of estimate probably 700 to 800 breeding pairs, I think it is. He's a real chatterbox. So the shore plover are still counted as critically endangered. Their last refuge was Rangatira Island here. And then you've got some pretty cool nocturnal insects and invertebrates over here as well. We've got the rangatira spider, which is kind of about as big as the palm of your hand at least. So obviously we're in a pretty remote part of New Zealand, and there's not much here in terms of your creature home comforts. We land on the island by boat. All of our food we have to bring with us, so that can be quite a mammoth undertaking. It is quite physical. We can't do the work that we do here without bringing in volunteers from New Zealand to help with that. We just don't have enough staff on the ground to be able to do what we need to do out here.
Our park tradition is one about putting nature in parks and building a fence around those parks, and that's been very, very important for conservation. You know, we have driven so many species to the brink of extinction, but we're great at building fences that actually have stopped them falling over that edge. Actually, what we know is that that's not going to be good enough. We need to make conservation happen everywhere.
The future of conservation isn't this. It's a means to an end. The early 2000s, the fence sanctuary came about, which was the cutting edge technology of conservation at the time, but very expensive to maintain. But you get some really good biodiversity results, second only to offshore islands. But you can't have huge areas fenced off. They are very expensive beasts. So now, the next kind of challenge is to without fence sanctuaries, and that's the predator-free movement.
I'm very clear about my view in terms of conservation. We preserve our environment by having a connection with our environment. We have a connection with our environment by using our environment. And I think there's a real cultural tension that exists, and I don't mean just Māori and Pākehā. I mean this is a tension that exists across the board. Do we lock it up and throw away the key and look at it from afar, or do we get in there and engage and see ourselves as part of the taiao and the natural environment? I am probably often offside with traditional conservationists in my views on this, and I'm okay with that. So Predator Free 2050 is a strategy that we committed to under the previous government to eradicating all pests by 2050. We started with the islands, but now we are moving on to larger landscapes, And that's pretty exciting, where we haven't got water surrounded by, or where we're not relying on fences. We are relying on things like mountains and the oceans and rivers and whatnot. So that's a pretty big undertaking, one I'm pretty excited about.
Maybe in my lifetime, just as I retire hopefully, we can actually tear down the fence. That's the bigger picture really. So yeah, my job, I might be redundant in a few years' time.
I'm sort of pushing 70, and it's I've seen stuff disappear in my lifetime. I probably won't be around to see it, but that's my dream, that we can have this country predator free.